Welcome to Oddmellow, a softer space to be you. Tonight, we travel into the shadowed corners of Filipino folklore, to a legend whispered from one generation to the next, the story of Batibat, the ancient spirit that dwells where dreams and sleep meet, a presence older than any home or forest, yet closer than the pillow beneath your head. Tonight, we invite you to lay back, settle into your space, and allow this story to guide you gently into the world where the waking and dreaming intertwine. There is no rush, no danger beyond your imagination, only the slow unfolding of a tale that has haunted homes and dreams for centuries. In the quiet hours, when the night seems to breathe around you, Batibat stirs. She is a being of shadows and whispers, known to descend upon those who sleep without heed, pressing against their chest and weaving dreams that are both vivid and unsettling. But this story is not meant to frighten. It is meant to immerse you, to draw you softly into the cadence of her legend, and to guide you into a calm, reflective state, where each breath and each heartbeat aligns with the rhythm of the night. We will move slowly through her world. You will hear of her origins, her encounters with those who dwell in her reach, and the strange balance she maintains between fear and wisdom. Through this, allow yourself to drift, to feel the calm interwoven with tension, and to let the story carry you gently toward sleep. So close your eyes if you wish, or let them wander over the dim light of your room. Feel your body relax into the surface beneath you, releasing the weight of your day. And as you do, let the tale of Batibat begin. Her story begins in the trees. In the old beliefs of the Philippines, the forest was never just wood and leaves. Every towering trunk, every tangle of roots was alive with something unseen. To walk beneath those canopies was to step into a sacred space where whispers clung to the air and shadows seemed to breathe. And among these hidden presences, none was more feared or more respected than Batibat. She was said to dwell in the great ancestral trees, massive trunks that had stood for centuries, older than any village, older than the memory of those who lived near them. To disturb these trees was to invite her wrath, for they were not only her shelter, but her very body, her tether to the world of the living. When the wood of such a tree was cut and carried away, she was carried with it into the beams of a house, into the posts that held up a roof, and wherever she went, her watchful presence remained. Some said Batibat had once been human, a woman wronged, whose spirit clung to the earth with bitterness that hardened into her form. Others whispered she was born of the land itself, an ancient soul shaped by the breath of the forest, as old as the first roots that drank from the soil. Both stories agreed on one truth. She was a guardian of balance, a punisher of those who took more than they should. The villagers told their children not to cut trees recklessly, not only because wood was precious, but because spirits lived within it. A single careless strike of an axe could awaken something terrible. A family who built their home without blessing the beams might find their nights filled with strange sounds creaking, not from wind, but from breath, groans that seemed to rise from the walls themselves. And then the dreams, always the dreams. Those who met Batibat in sleep described the same terror. A weight pressing upon the chest, so heavy that breath itself seemed stolen. Eyes that opened but could not move, a body trapped beneath an invisible presence. At the edges of their vision, some swore they saw her swollen face, unblinking eyes, long tangled hair that brushed against the rafters. Others never saw her at all, but felt her power in the paralysis of their limbs and the suffocating grip of the night. Modern voices call this sleep paralysis, a trick of body and mind. But for the people of the older villages, there was no doubt. It was Batibat, punishing the disrespect of those who forgot the sacred. To speak Ramame in the morning was to confirm the truth. She had been there, and she would return. And yet, beneath the fear, there was a deeper understanding. Batibat was not mindless cruelty. She was consequence. She was memory. She was the breath of the forest made into form, reminding people that every act carried weight. To live in balance, to honor the trees, to take only what was needed. This was how one stayed safe. But to ignore these rules, to cut, to burn, to desecrate, this was to invite her shadow into your bed. Even in their fear, villagers wove rituals of protection. They whispered prayers before sleep, laid charms near their pillows, or turned their bodies a certain way to keep her from sitting upon them. And in the telling of these rituals, Batibat became not only an enemy, but a teacher. She shaped the rhythm of life, guiding people into a deeper respect for the unseen. Imagine now, lying in a bamboo hut on a humid night centuries ago. The air is still. The silence is broken only by the faint chirp of crickets. Above you, the rafters creak, slow and deliberate, as though something unseen has shifted its weight. Your chest grows heavy, your breath shallow. You cannot move. You sense her near, the ancient watcher of the tree now bound within the beams of your home. This was the fear and the faith that held entire villages in awe. Batibat was not merely a nightmare. She was a guardian, cloaked in dread. A reminder that even in rest, humans are bound to the balance of the natural world. She was both story and law, myth and warning, a figure who lived in dreams but shaped the waking life of those who told her name. And as her legend spread from one fire circle to the next, she became part of the very identity of the people, not simply as a threat, but as proof that the land itself was alive, watching, waiting, and ready to remind anyone who forgot. So when people lay down to sleep, it was never just to close their eyes. It was to surrender to the night, knowing that Batibat might linger just beyond the edge of consciousness, her weight pressing gently as a warning, her story breathing softly in the silence. Night in the old villages was never fully silent. The chirping of crickets, the hum of cicadas, The occasional call of a night bird filled the air like a woven tapestry. Yet families lying in their bamboo huts often felt another presence layered beneath these sounds, something heavier, something that listened as much as it moved. The beams above them creaked without wind. The shadows deepened in corners where no lantern flickered. It was said that when Batibat had settled into a home, the walls themselves seemed to breathe. Children, restless under thin blankets, would whisper that they felt eyes upon them, eyes they never saw but always knew were there. Parents hushed them, reminding them to keep still, to keep silent, for even a careless word might draw her closer. And in that silence, every breath taken inside the home became a prayer, unspoken but desperate, that she would pass over them that night. For those who did not escape her notice, the night became a battlefield between breath and shadow. The drift into sleep was gentle at first, dreams of rivers, of harvest fields, of firelight dances. But then the shift came, a sudden weight pressing upon the chest, as though the very air had thickened into stone. The sleeper's eyes opened wide with terror, but their limbs lay stiff, useless, as if bound by invisible ropes. They tried to shout, to whisper, to call for help, yet no sound would escape. In the corners of blurred vision, shapes coiled, hair like tangled vines brushing the rafters, eyes swollen and unblinking, a face both near and impossibly far. Some swore they heard her breathing, slow and deliberate, filling the hut as though she were lying atop them, feeding upon their fear. For minutes that stretched like hours, the dreamer hovered between life and death, waking and sleeping, until at last, with a gasp, the weight lifted. But the memory lingered, etched into their bones. To dream of Batibat was to remember her forever.
Night in the old villages was never fully silent. The chirping of crickets, the hum of cicadas, the occasional call of a night bird filled the air like a woven tapestry. Yet families lying in their bamboo huts often felt another presence layered beneath these sounds, something heavier, something that listened as much as it moved. The beams above them creaked without wind. The shadows deepened in corners where no lantern flickered. It was said that when Batibat had settled into a home, the walls themselves seemed to breathe. Children, restless under thin blankets, would whisper that they felt eyes upon them, eyes they never saw but always knew were there. Parents hushed them, reminding them to keep still, to keep silent, for even a careless word might draw her closer. And in that silence, every breath taken inside the home became a prayer, unspoken but desperate, that she would pass over them that night. For those who did not escape her notice, the night became a battlefield between breath and shadow. The drift into sleep was gentle at first, dreams of rivers, of harvest fields, of firelight dances. But then the shift came, a sudden weight pressing upon the chest, as though the very air had thickened into stone. The sleeper's eyes opened wide with terror, but their limbs lay stiff, useless, as if bound by invisible ropes. They tried to shout, to whisper, to call for help, yet no sound would escape. In the corners of blurred vision, shapes coiled, hair like tangled vines brushing the rafters, eyes swollen and unblinking, a face both near and impossibly far. Some swore they heard the rasp of her breathing, slow and deliberate, filling the hut as though she were lying atop them, feeding upon their fear. For minutes that stretched like hours, the dreamer hovered between life and death, waking and sleeping, until at last, with a gasp, the weight lifted. But the memory lingered, etched into their bones. To dream of Batibat was to remember her forever.
The people were never helpless, though their defenses were humble. Some whispered short prayers before laying their heads to rest, invoking the spirits of ancestors to guard them from Batibat's press. Others laid charms near their mats, woven threads, carved amulets of bone, or offerings of rice left upon the windowsill. It was common to sleep turned to one side, for they believed Batibat most often struck those who lay flat upon their backs, as if daring her to sit upon them. Parents taught these habits with care, knowing that to forget even once might invite a long, suffocating night. And so ritual became routine, woven into the act of sleeping itself. The hut was never simply a shelter. It was a stage for the delicate balance between the seen and unseen. By obeying these rituals, families showed respect, and in return, they hoped only for rest unbroken by fear. In the hush of those nights, the villagers came to see Batibat not only as torment, but as teacher. Her presence, dreadful as it was, reminded them of the fragile line between life and spirit, between taking and respecting. To know she lingered above was to sleep with humility, to dream with caution. She was both boundary and reminder, ensuring no one forgot that every tree cut, every beam raised, carried the memory of the forest. Her lessons were not gentle, yet they endured. Children grew into adults carrying the same habits, the same whispered warnings, shaping a culture of reverence for the unseen. And in that way, Batibat lived not only in nightmares, but in daily life. She was the unseen guest at every hearth, the shadow at the edge of every dream. Her story was not just told, it was lived. In the rhythm of breathing, in the silence between words, in the weight of the night itself.
Even before Batibat fully revealed herself, her presence could be felt. A sudden chill creeping across the bamboo floor, a shadow that moved against the grain of light from a single lamp, or the faintest whisper when the wind was still. These were the early warnings. Families learned to recognize them. A child tossing in bed, a parent staring at a corner, the rustle of a mat as if pressed by unseen weight. Each subtle sign told of her nearness. To ignore these signs was to invite her attention, for Batibat respected awareness. Those who slept heedlessly risked the full encounter, the heavy press upon their chest that left them paralyzed and breathless. When she did appear, Batibat's form was both grotesque and mesmerizing. Her body seemed larger than human, her hair like thick vines that brushed the ceiling, her eyes unblinking and full of ancient memory. Yet her movements were slow,
deliberate, almost hypnotic. Dreamers described being lifted, pressed down, or held in a weightless embrace where fear and calm coexisted. Some awoke with hearts racing. Others found themselves unable to move for moments stretched into hours. And always a whisper of warning lingered. Respect the unseen. Honor the forest. Heed the old ways. Through these encounters, Batibat imparted her lessons, not with words, but with the palpable force of her presence.
Villagers developed ways to appease her, blending ritual with intuition. Rice grains scattered at thresholds, salt sprinkled near corners, prayers muttered under the breath, and mats positioned to prevent her from pressing upon the sleeper. Some families burned incense or sage in the evening, letting the smoke carry offerings to her spirit. Others relied on inherited chants, passed down quietly, words too old to remember the first time they were spoken, yet carrying power that kept her from lingering too long. These methods were never foolproof, but they provided comfort, a rhythm of precaution woven into the daily act of preparing for sleep. Over time, Batibat's legend became more than just caution. Her presence taught reverence for life and the natural world. She was not simply a predator in the night. She was consequence made tangible, a reminder that the earth, the trees, and the very structures of homes were alive with memory and spirit. To encounter her was to confront mortality, humility, and the delicate balance between human desire and nature's laws. Families who heeded her lessons lived in harmony, sleeping with awareness, respecting boundaries, and passing down the traditions that kept both fear and wisdom alive. In this way, Batibat existed not only in dreams, but in the heartbeat of daily life, shaping generations with the soft pressure of shadow and story.
Villagers often spoke of Batibat, not only as a shadow in the night, but as a weaver of dreams. One family told of a child who slept beneath a beam that had once been part of an ancient boleti tree. That night, the child dreamed of a forest where trees whispered secrets and the wind carried voices older than memory. At first, the dream was enchanting, a dance of light and leaves, but slowly, a weight pressed down, a presence unseen but fully known. The child felt eyes upon them, following every turn of thought, every flutter of heart. When morning came, the child awoke with a shiver, but not entirely in fear. The dream had been vivid, real, yet strangely instructive. The parents whispered that Batibat had tested their child, reminding them of the delicate balance between wonder and caution. In another tale, a farmer returning from distant lands built his home hastily, using wood from trees without blessing or ceremony. At first, life seemed ordinary, yet each night brought growing unease. Cracks in the bamboo, the sudden shift of shadows, and the slow creak of beams at midnight became routine. Then came the night when his eldest daughter could not breathe. She lay paralyzed, her eyes wide, and a heavy presence pressed upon her chest. The father, awake and helpless, whispered the old prayers he barely remembered. Slowly, the weight lifted, and with it came understanding. Batibat had visited not merely to punish, but to instruct. Respect the unseen, honor the roots, and treat all living wood as sacred. The lesson lingered in the family's memory for generations, passed down with reverent whispers.
One of the most whispered stories tells of a village that once ignored the warnings of elders. They cut trees recklessly, built homes without regard for ancient spirits, and mocked the cautionary tales of Batibat. At night, a silence unlike any other fell. No wind, no rustle, no distant animal call. Only the slow, deliberate creak of roofs under a presence that no one could see. Those who slept felt a heavy, suffocating pressure, eyes wide, but bodies unmoving. By dawn, the villagers awoke with memories etched into their very bones, the undeniable touch of Batibat's shadow, the quiet lesson in humility, and the stark understanding that nature would not be ignored. From that day forward, respect became law, ritual, and habit, woven into every nightly preparation for sleep. Stories of Batibat did not end with fear. Families learned to live in harmony with her presence. A child's bedtime story was more than entertainment, it was guidance. A gentle touch upon a pillow, a whispered chant, a careful placement of mats, all these acts became part of a rhythm that intertwined life with legend. Batibat's shadow was a companion in the night, shaping behavior, guiding respect, and reminding humans of their place within a living, breathing world. Her tale was no longer only cautionary, it was instructional, a narrative that carried the weight of history, nature, and the unseen into each dream and every night of rest.
Batibat's presence extended beyond mere legend. Villagers noted that those who encountered her often carried a lingering heaviness, even during waking hours. Their dreams, once light and whimsical, now shifted to the slow cadence of caution. A farmer recounting his nightly encounters would awake with his chest tight, a subtle echo of the night's shadow pressing still upon him. Children spoke of dreams where the forest bent and twisted, the wind carrying silent admonishments. In this way, Batibat's effect became a subtle teacher, a force that shaped both sleep and waking perception. Fear, tempered with respect, became a constant companion, guiding behavior and thought, reminding all who slept that every action had consequence.
As villagers recounted encounters over generations, a unique observation emerged. The line between waking and dreaming blurred in her presence. Nightmares were vivid, yet lessons persisted long after awakening. Ordinary life seemed tinged with her shadow. A creak in the roof could suddenly feel like her presence, a flicker of wind like whispered words in a child's ear. This blending of realms caused a quiet mindfulness, a living awareness of the unseen. Families learned to carry her lessons into daily routines, caution in cutting wood, respect for ancestral spaces, mindfulness in every act, so that her weight might ease when night fell, and dreams could be traversed safely. Though terrifying, Batibat imparted wisdom. Her visits were reminders that life and death,
Sleep and consciousness were intertwined in ways humans rarely understood. A child who slept under her gaze learned caution. A parent who neglected tradition found humility in the quiet of night. The pressing weight, the inability to move, the vivid hallucinations, all were part of her subtle teaching. Batibat was not cruelty, she was consequence, a living archive of ancestral knowledge. Villagers would tell each other that to encounter her was to touch something ancient, something beyond ordinary comprehension. They learned that the terror was purposeful, designed to instill reflection, respect, and an intimate understanding of boundaries. By embracing her lessons, families adapted their lives to coexist with Batibat. Houses were built mindfully, beams carefully chosen and blessed. Sleep became an intentional act, prayers and rituals a daily practice. Even in modern villages, elders spoke of her influence, the respectful trimming of trees, the care in choosing a new home's timber, the whispered legends to children at dusk. Batibat's shadow was no longer merely feared. It shaped the moral and spiritual fabric of the community. Her presence became a gentle, if heavy, guide, ensuring that respect, mindfulness, and reverence were passed from one generation to the next. In dreams and waking life alike, she remained a subtle teacher, a shadow that reminded humans of the unseen yet ever-present rhythms of the world around them.
Some villagers, despite warnings, failed to honor the old rituals. One story tells of a man who cut timber from a sacred balete tree, believing the tales of Batibat to be mere superstition. That night, as he slept in his newly built home, he felt the weight upon his chest instantly. His breath grew shallow, his limbs frozen, and his vision filled with shadowy forms coiling across the ceiling. He tried to call out, but no sound emerged. Hours, or perhaps minutes, stretched into eternity as Batibat pressed, teaching him the gravity of disrespect. By dawn, the man awoke exhausted, trembling, his respect for the unseen solidified, forever changed by the silent lesson she imparted. A child, curious and restless, once defied her family's warnings and slept without the protective charms laid by elders. Batibat visited not with anger, but with precision, testing the child's awareness and humility. The dreams that night were vivid, forests bending, rivers running backward, shadows moving against the flow of time. The child felt the pressing weight, the invisible hand upon the chest, yet also a strange sense of guidance, as if each fear contained a hidden truth. Upon waking, the child recounted the dream with awe and reverence, understanding that the lessons of the night were as real as the sunlight that poured into the hut.
In contrast, families who respected the old ways often experienced gentler visits. A mother carefully laid charms and whispered prayers, and her household felt the presence of Batibat as a weight, yes, but tempered, measured, almost protective. The press upon the chest was brief, the shadows fleeting, yet the lesson was clear. mindfulness and respect eased the burden of her attention. These encounters became stories told at dusk, guiding children and visitors alike, embedding an understanding that reverence for the unseen was not optional, but essential for harmony and safety.
Through these extreme encounters, Batibat's influence became enduring. Villagers learned that fear itself was a tool, a guide to maintain balance. Respect for trees, homes, and ancestral spaces became ritualized. Sleep, once a simple act of rest, transformed into a deliberate practice of mindfulness. Every creak, every shadow, every flicker of wind was an opportunity to honor what they could not see. And as the legend continued through generations, Batibat's lessons were never forgotten. They shaped behavior, reinforced respect, and reminded all who slept beneath her watchful shadow that life, dreams, and the unseen world were intricately intertwined.
As the night deepens and the shadows settle, imagine the stories you've heard floating softly around you. The weight of Batibat's presence, once pressing and intense, now feels like a gentle reminder. Every lesson, every encounter, every whispered warning merges into a quiet understanding. She is no longer a distant threat, but a guardian of balance, a force that shaped not only the villagers of old, but the rhythm of night itself. Your body sinks deeper into the surface beneath you. Each breath slows, each heartbeat softens, and you feel the gentle rhythm of sleep weaving through your awareness. Let the stories linger in your mind without tension. The encounters and extreme moments were lessons, not just for the villagers, but for you as you lie here. Respect, mindfulness, and calm awareness are gifts you can carry into your own life. Imagine them as soft threads connecting you to the world, grounding you, reminding you that even in darkness, there is guidance. Feel the echoes of the forest, the hush of the belete trees, the quiet wisdom of Batibat's shadow wrapping you in safety. Your eyelids grow heavy. Every exhale releases a little more tension. Every inhale fills you with serene awareness.
Now, drift further into the calm. Visualize a slow, quiet forest at night. Mist curls gently around ancient trunks. Leaves sway softly in a breeze that carries no chill, only peace. Shadows move not to frighten, but to guide. In this space, you are safe. You are at rest. Batibat's stories fade into whispers, your mind releasing the narrative and letting only tranquility remain. The lessons of fear and respect dissolve into gentle reflection. You are present in the moment, weightless, calm, ready to surrender fully to sleep. Feel yourself sinking deeper, the surface beneath you supporting every part of your body. Every breath aligns with the rhythm of night. You are in a space where stories and dreams coexist, where the lessons of Batibat wrap around you like a soft, protective cloak. No hurry, no worry, only the gentle cadence of your own breathing, the quiet of the forest,
the whisper of an ancient spirit guiding you into stillness. Let go completely. Drift now fully and safely into the world of dreams. And as you do, carry the calm, the respect, and the gentle wisdom of Batibat with you into sleep.